Hey guys, Sleepy Reader here. Early morning, 5 o'clock in the morning my time, I wanted to talk about the just finished DC Zero Month. I can't believe that I bought 21 Zero issues. A lot more than I was planning to buy. A lot of them they were on my pull list and they were unavoidable. And I had a negative reaction to a lot of them. When it was all announced, I knew I wouldn't love it, and I felt comic book companies need these events, and better this kind of event than a huge crossover, in my opinion. So I couldn't hold that against DC, but there were there were a lot of duds. I felt, um, but as I look back on it now, there weren't quite as many bad books as I thought. Um, so I'm going to start by just going over everything I got, roughly in order of worst to best. So it kind of starts with a couple of issues. For me, there were a couple of issues that are just like, what the heck? And much to my surprise, one of those was Batman Inc., Batman Incorporated by Grant Morrison, not by Chris Burnham, although I guess it was co-plotted by Chris Burnham, but art by Fraser Irving. The art really didn't work for me. His art seems like it would be well suited to maybe a horror comic book or something, but not to this kind of goofy Grant Morrison. Let's get the whole gang of Bat heroes together. All this did was sort of, to me, seem to randomly shows the gathering of some of the characters who might be part of Batman Inc. It connected very little to the previous three issues. We've only had three issues of this. Some of the other issues of this seemed like they could have been zero issues. What is the idea of zero issues? Are they origin issues or filling in a little piece of back history, or something else? And they were all of those things depending on the thing. And then another just sort of what the heck is this was Legion of Superheroes. It didn't really make any sense to me. I just picked this up hoping for some kind of clear origin issue of Legion of Superheroes because I don't follow them. Maybe this made a lot of sense to someone who has been following the Legion of Superheroes, but it was just a what the hell? What the hell is this about? Didn't really make any sense. Um, Earth 2, I've kind of downgraded this. I gave it a fairly good review when it came out, and the more I think about it, the weaker of an issue it was. It fits into a little slot of a few of these issues just gave us a piece of the tapestry, so to speak. So there might be an interesting bit of information here about Earth 2 and this hero number 8, who turns out to be this world's Mr. Terrific. But overall, looking back on it, it was kind of a weak read. It had kind of interesting art, um, but yeah, it was one of the weaker ones. Another one that kind of filled in a piece of the tapestry. Another question with these, so these two issues filled in a piece of the tapestry in my mind. A little bit of background that might be useful in later issues. But will they be useful? Will this come back up soon? Um, you know, I especially wondered that with Dail H. We did learn something new about the whole Dail H universe, and it was quite intriguing. But how much use are they going to make of it? Or was this kind of just a throwaway thing? And then we do move on, or I'm moving on to issues that were sort of origin issues. Some of them were, occasionally they were a fairly complete origin issue. Often they were a little slice of the origin so that we can come back to the origin and pump out the origins even more. One was Captain Atom, beautiful artwork, a just kind of origin story for a series that's going out of print. We had Red Lanterns, which was a kind of origin of Atrocicus, who then will go on to found the Red Lantern. So it's almost an early part of the origin story. It was decent. It had decent artwork. The closer you look at the Red Lanterns, the less they really make sense. So, yeah, it was okay. Another okay sort of origin story, sort of piece of the tapestry puzzle piece of the background story was Justice League Dark, where we learned more about this version of Constantine. I assume it's not at all like the version of Constantine in Vertigo. And we get to learn kind of about a love triangle he was involved in with Satana, and we get a new kind of person who used to be a colleague of Constantine that's obviously, or pretty obviously, going to be the bad guy in the current continuity. So that was okay. The art was eh. The story just seemed uninspired to me. It was okay, but not... for me, for Jeff Lemire, it seemed pretty weak, especially. I, Vampire gave us the origin of... Oh, now my mind's going blank on what his name was. Andrew Bennett gave us a sort of brief story of Andrew Bennett becoming a vampire and gave us some of the emotional background of that. And it was okay. The art was beautiful, but I thought as a story it was pretty skimpy. It just quickly sketched in a little bit about Andrew Bennett and his becoming a vampire, and then it was over, and it just didn't seem very detailed to me. Birds of Prey was another one that I don't know a whole lot about and thought I would learn more by picking up this origin story, and it was kind of an okay origin of how Black Canary became involved with some of these other women as a superhero. And it was okay. There was just nothing special about it. And here's an interesting case. This is issue 0 of the brand new series Phantom Stranger. And it really just was issue number 1 of the Phantom Stranger. It was his origin. But to me, told very poorly, very vague, and just didn't establish a whole lot about the character other than the most basic outline. And a really kind of wasted opportunity. Phantom Stranger just seems... It just could have been so much better. Swamp Thing was like a piece of the origin of the Swamp Thing, I guess, and a backstory on the relationship with the Rot. It was kind of a story about Arcane, really. And it was quite good, but it was very incomplete. Very, very incomplete. Batwoman had some great art in it, of course, by J.H. Williams. It was kind of a retreading, and there we got the treads of her boots, a retreading of some of the stuff we already know about her origin, put in maybe a slightly different light about her relationship with her father. It seemed a little piece of the origin, but kind of, just in terms of the writing, just quickly whipped off, and here's a little thing. And that kind of, especially because Batwoman, did I call her Wonder Woman? Batwoman is so good in the current run that it just definitely seemed like a minor interruption in our regular story. Now we start to get to ones that were quite good, in my opinion. Frankenstein, Agent of Shade was a very good origin story. Really gave us a nasty look at Victor von Frankenstein and what Frankenstein, or Frankenstein's monster, they just call him Frankenstein here, went through before he joined Shade. And it also gives us a little peek of what Shade must have been like hundreds of years ago. A super science organization, even before science really had gotten going. But very good art, good story. if you're interested at all in Frankenstein Agent of Shade, it would have been a good jumping on point. And if you are reading Frankenstein of Shade, it would have told you stuff you didn't already know and make a good story. Batman and Robin probably didn't tell us anything we don't know if we've been reading lots of Batman. It makes a nice. This goes together well with Batman Inc. #2, where we get Talia al Ghul's story, and here we get Robin's story, Damian al Ghul's story, or Damian Wayne's story, before leading up to his first meeting with Batman. Great art, good story, a good origin or a piece of the origin of Damian Wayne. Very intense, violent story. Some really, really cool moments in it. Well worth picking up. If you're interested in Batman and Robin and haven't started, you could start with this issue. And if you do read Batman and Robin, you're still going to enjoy this issue. You could pass on it if you know a lot about Batman and the Damian Robin, because it doesn't give you any particularly new information. It just fleshes out and makes a lot of fun of stuff we already know. Flash, it wasn't like a head-on origin story because it did include a little moment of his origin, but it didn't focus on him becoming a superhero and learning his powers and everything. It just had some of that, and then it had a lot of his kind of backstory and motivation about his father, who apparently killed his mother, and how that led him into wanting to work with the police and be a crime scientist and all of that. It was very good, very beautiful art. A kind of quieter, slower story than the main line of Flash. So in a way, this was a nice, quiet resting point because I'm pretty sure the next series of Flash issues is going to be very high energy, with Gorilla Grodd invading Flash's city. Central City? No, what's the city Flash lives in? Can't even remember. But yeah, very good. And quite good. I probably should have put this less. This is probably less good than The Flash or than Frankenstein Agent of Shade. But anyway, Talon Zero was a decent origin story for a brand new hero. So that made it very interesting. Good artwork. Not sort of a blow your mind origin story, but a very good origin story. And I have to say, in general, origin stories to me are never the most exciting story. They may be important to understand more about our hero, at least sometimes. But they rarely, in my mind, kick ass. They're rarely the very best stories. So this definitely was good enough to make me want to pick up Talon #1 and follow Talon for a while. Even though it does feel like we've had enough of the Court of Owls. It's hard to tell for sure where this will go, but it's a good, solid start. So worth picking up if you're at all curious about it. Animal Man issue 0 was, I thought, an excellent origin story for Animal Man, tied in nicely with the current continuity, the current story that is just revving up about the rot. So it would be a good starting point for Animal Man, or a good starting point for reading Animal Man and Swamp Thing together. It would probably fill you in on a lot of information and give you a strong sense of Animal Man. Great art, good writing. So Animal Man is probably Jeff Lemire's best book, a very good book. So this 0 issue was definitely not a waste. And then I picked up 2 Batmans that I wouldn't have if it weren't for watching one of Beardo's Minutia Minutes most recent videos, where he covered a lot of the Bat Family 0 issues. And he made this sound so good that I grabbed it, and just, since it was by the same author, I then also grabbed Batman Detective Comics. So this is Batman Dark Knight. The writer, Greg Hurwitz, just does a fantastic job of creating almost I don't know, a mood piece, a thought piece, a prose poem about Bruce Wayne's childhood after his parents are died, um, his focus and intensity and his emotional feelings about about that death after. So in the years, I guess, while he's still a child before he goes off to explore the world. It was just really great. I'm not doing a good job. I'm not doing it justice at all. The artwork was very good. The writing was very good. It put you inside young Bruce Wayne's skin and his intensity and his focus on his parents' death. Um, I highly recommend this issue to anyone who digs Batman. So, and it makes me, I hadn't been reading the Greg Hurwitz Dark Knight run, so now I'm going to jump on that. His writing really impresses me. Um, Also good, but not up to the peak. And it was written by Greg Hurwitz also, I think just as a fill-in writer on this before John Layman comes in. Um, so this is kind of the peak of Greg Hurwitz, but this one, also written by Greg Hurwitz, was quite decent. The message in it, though, might have been a little misogynistic. There's a certain sense of don't trust women here, but I don't want to give away too much. So it it raises lots of other sort of questions about Bruce Wayne and where he puts away his emotions, and is he going to put away his emotions completely? What does he learn from this episode? Um, Very good, kind of grim stuff. I don't want to go into too much detail to spoil it. And then a backup about Alfred waiting for the return of Bruce Wayne, and that was decent too. There was nothing you needed to know, but it was kind of did some fun things, and we've got someone here who might be the Joker before he became the Joker. They're just sort of little teases with his smiles and stuff. I don't know. Um, the Joker is so insane. It's hard to imagine what he was like before he became the Joker. Uh, anyway, so this is decent. It was a $3.99 issue, which I don't usually pick up, but I wasn't too. It was pretty meaty. And then, so yeah, I'd say starting with these, there's the four that I really loved. It was these two Batmans, the Dark Knight and the Detective Comics. And I have to say, I was going to skip a lot of things, so I didn't get the main Batman title, although I thought, well, maybe someday I'll pick it up when I can find a cheap copy. But I would, after watching Beardo's video, I was going to grab it too, but I couldn't find it, and I couldn't find Nightwing. Beardo also made me want to read Nightwing, so I may pick up those later if I can find them. So these two plus two more were the zero issues that I really loved. Demon Knights was the best issue of Demon Knights yet. Paul Cornell's best writing, really nice art, fantastic kind of origin for the demon himself, and shedding a little more light on Merlin and a little more light on Jason Blood. A lot of it takes place in hell, and I love stories about hell. You can't have more conflict than being in hell. So I would not like to go there, but I enjoy stories about it. And this was a very well done story about demons, hell, Satan, etc. Or Lucifer. I don't think they call him Satan. I think they try to parse out their things that touch on religion and make it not quite the hell of Christianity or some other religion, but a fantasy hell, I guess. Although where the keeping religion out of things with the Phantom Stranger, who turns out to be Judas, that's a whole nother thing. I could go on about how irritated I am about the Phantom Stranger for a long time. So I loved that issue. And then I loved Wonder Woman. This is just, especially for people who read a lot of comics. You don't have to read a lot of comics to enjoy it, but it just has an extra thrill to it. It's a wonderful sort of modern harkening back to Silver Age comics, taking place in Wonder Woman's youth, I guess when she's maybe between the ages of 10 and 12. It's like those Tales of Asgard. Is that what they were called in Thor, way back when? But done incredibly well. Beautiful art, great story. Evokes the way comics used to be done, but still has a lot of modern touches, and is just a really, really good story. So I recommend this to any fan of comic books or superhero comic books or comic book history. It was a really great issue. So overall, yeah, some great issues, some decent issues. In the end, it was a drag. I hope it doesn't hurt their sales in the long run. There were some of these books I read, and then I thought it kind of reduced my my opinion of the regular run. Those aren't the best examples. If we go further back, kind of lessened my interest in some of these books. I think they kind of blew it in terms of making a jumping on point for people. And I think they kind of blew it. They could have made just a series of simple origin books, and that might have been the smartest thing to do, because in the long run, it would have been something for owners of comic book shops to point new readers to. Here, just get this zero issue, or get this reprint of the zero issues. They could have reprinted them in groups of, they could have had all the zero issues for the Dark, and all the zero issues for the teen books, and all the zero issues for the Bat books. And you could have handed those to a new reader and said, here's where you start, official starting point. But they aren't that. They're a mismatch. They're little puzzle pieces. They're parts of the origins and stuff. Looking back on it now, when I go through all of those, and because there were some very good ones, I didn't hate the 0 month as much. Well, I don't hate it as much now as I did during parts of the month. But I'm very relieved to get back to the regular stories. I hope it hasn't hurt too many of the regular continuities in terms of interrupting the creators. Or it definitely leading up to it, I felt like some of the comics got foreshortened. So it's too bad, an opportunity missed by DC. It'll be interesting to see whether that, because I think overall they handled the New 52 very well. They brought in a lot of new readers. Whether they will continue to do things that might actually push away new readers, or whether they'll keep their momentum going. So, interesting times to be a comic book reader, even if not the most satisfying. Talk to you all later. Bye-bye.